Hey, welcome to Fearless Freedom with Dr. G. This is another episode, and I'm so happy that you're joining us. And today we actually have a special guest. It is Dr. Nii Darko. He is a surgeon, and he is an entrepreneur, and he is also the mastermind behind the Doctors Outside the Box podcast and movement. So thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your time with us.
Dr. G, thank you so much for inviting me on your show. I'm really excited for you for a couple of reasons. One, I think it's really great to have more physician podcasters out there. So that's really awesome. And then number two, I mean, it's just, you're sharing your journey, of fearless freedom with everybody else, with your listeners. So it's really great to kind of watch you go through your arc. So I'm excited to be here. As you know, I host my own podcast. It's been really great to kind of go through that journey of interviewing different people. But how about we turn let's turn the sides and I will interview you, if that's okay, so that we can get to know a little bit more about you. How's that sound?
That sounds great.
Sounds great. Okay. So like I do with my show, I always start off by taking things all the way back, even before my guest became doctor. So let's learn more about Dr. G when you were, let's just say the 8th grade. Let's take it from there.
Oh boy. So 8th grade was different for me because I was in a interesting program in the junior high school that I attended, and it was called Special Progress, but special progress in the sense of the gifted folks. And we did 7th grade in one semester and then 8th grade the second semester. It was very interesting because it was in an environment outside of our grouping that was quite hostile. And looking back now, I'm very grateful to have had that shielding and that opportunity to be amongst other people who are interested in learning and not so much interested in gangbanging and whatnot. So it was an interesting experience for me because I grew up in the Caribbean 10 years of my life, came to the States, really only had one other year in the States in the public school system. And then we moved to Brooklyn from the Bronx. And then I was at the school, which was in a very rough neighborhood.
So you mean you went from the Caribbean back to the Caribbean, you mean? Because everybody knows New York is the,
all the Bronx
coming of the Caribbean, right?
But that's another story.
Okay. All right. Well, how did you find your love of medicine, or where did you discover that?
So that actually was born when I was in Jamaica. So I had an excellent pediatrician that I absolutely adored. And I did something that was quite odd for a child to do, which was every time I went to the doctor, I literally asked for a shot. And
what?
Yes, that was me. I was that weird kid. And then my mom noticed that I was really interested in medicine, being a physician. And so she didn't really know how else to give me an exposure because we really didn't have any friends that were physicians. And so she bought me this 3-volume encyclopedia set. And I remember I couldn't even close my eyes right now and visualize the pages. And it had overlays. So you'd have the initial film would have the skeletal system, then you overlaid on that the muscular system, and you overlaid on that the vascular system, and then you overlaid on that the neuro system. I mean, it was amazing. And I would just curl in my bed and I would just leaf through this thing and just be in another world. And so she saw that and she rolled with it. And we ended up coming to the States because she knew that with one medical school on the island, with the competition being not just Jamaicans, but also other Caribbean students who are the best and the brightest, she just didn't want me not to be able to realize that dream. So we moved to the States and kind of got integrated in the American system in the hopes that I would be able to go to college and go to med school and realize a dream that was born in that 8-year-old mind.
Okay. So that dream that was born finally got fulfilled. Right. And then you're taking care of patients, but something interesting happened, can you talk to us about that? Do you mind if we go there and talk about, you obviously the zenith of your trying to get that goal was graduating, but then you kind of hit a low point. Let's talk a little bit.
I did. Yeah, there was definitely an amazing high. It was almost ethereal, I would say. just crossing the dais and getting that paper and looking back at my family and just really being so appreciative of the sacrifices that they made and the sacrifice that, I ended up making too, to make this happen. And, getting into a residency program in a competitive specialty in emergency medicine and training at an excellent program at Duke University Medical Center, and then getting a position as an attending at the end of the training and, doing what I thought I was born to do, helping patients and teaching residents and just really in it, volunteering for everything and just getting involved. But I would say probably right around, I want to say it might be year 7 or 8, I did not appreciate that something was changing. And it was a very slow creep. It was almost like a clandestine thief that was coming in the night to take all your belongings and just rob you of your joy. And that was what happened to me. So I was going along, doing my thing, and I tripped and I fell right into that deep, dark, dank pit that's called burnout. And I didn't even know that I was there. It was such a thing that was so sneaky that you just start to believe that the things that you're doing that are not normal are actually feeling normal. And so because you don't recognize it, you have no way of knowing how to get out of it. So that's kind of what happened to me. So I was kind of at a fork in the road, and I honestly thought that I was going to have to walk away from this thing that I had worked so hard and so many had sacrificed for me to be able to achieve.
Well, that's really powerful. And, obviously that was the nadir of your career. You're obviously making a comeback, and your middle name must be Phoenix, so it's really impressive what you're doing. Like, tell us, because this is what this show is about, right? This show is about, hitting your nadir, hitting the difficult points, and then, getting up and surviving and moving past that. Like, how did you do that? Give us a little glimpse into how you were able to get freedom from that.
So the fear of burnout, the fear of failing, the fear of falling on your face, I had all those things, right? Except for the potentially, I didn't clearly have that fear of burnout because I actually didn't know what that was. I just basically thought that, we're resilient people, like we're tough, like we can do it all. We can weather the storm. We can make it happen, especially in emergency medicine. Like you can, make fire out of rocks, so it's like, that is the mentality. And so, that unfortunately blinds you, right? So it makes you not realize when you're having a problem. And so for me, the way that I came to it was kind of like through the back door in a way. I had literally had 3 children in the span of 4 years. And I had literally worked up until the very last moment of each one of those. And one of them, I got off my shift and delivered her. That was
Are you serious?
I'm serious. My last child, yeah. I was in labor during my shift because I didn't want to take any extra days, and I was hoping to have the full leave with her. And so she ended up coming on my last shift. And so, so it was all these things. Then I had a knee injury. So I was very active, extremely active with the same child that I gave birth to, a couple hours after the end of my shift. I had run a 5K when I was about 27 weeks. And I was training really hard. During the pregnancy, I did yoga, I lifted weights, all this stuff. And
super mom.
Well, I think part of it was I was older and I resented the whole thing of the advanced maternal age being stamped on my docket. And I wanted to prove that I could do it. And so that was part of it. And following having her, I kind of went, full-fledged into working out again. And I decided I was going to run a 5K every single month during the running season.
What?
but and pushing her. So I was pushing, no, I didn't push her, but I pushed the other two in a double stroller running these races. And so the problem was, that mentality, that same like I can make fire out of rocks mentality was to my detriment because I didn't train adequately for that kind of situation. And then I ended up injuring my right knee. And it was this cryptic injury that nobody could figure out. Like I had CAT scans, I had MRIs, I had my knee tapped like 3 times. But nobody could figure out what was wrong with it. And it was painful and swollen and, I was not able to work out. And so deconditioning set in, atrophy set in because I literally had the right side was almost like a third of the side of the left. Like that's how bad it was. And finally I went to surgery a year later after this all happened. And then they found out that my knee literally looked like an old person's knee. There was so much debris and my meniscus was torn. So once that was rectified, everything was all good. But as you can well imagine, now we're talking a person who is super active and super like in shape and fit and taking care of themselves is now unable to do the workouts that she typically would. And so, the girth got bigger, got wider, and the confidence got lower. And you go to give a talk and literally you can't fit into your suit. So, that gets to you. And then I said, okay, this is it. So then I made a decision to get involved with an accountability group of a set of women who were working on their fitness and health. And that's how it started. So it started by reclaiming 30 minutes of time about 5 or 6 times a week. And it just compounded. And I started to feel better. I started to feel more confident. I started to have joy again. I didn't realize this at the time, but I stopped clenching the steering wheel and going through the mental exercise of telling myself to put feet on the ground, get out of the car, go into the hospital, do what you're called to do, and serve patients.
So this is a phenomenal story, and you've gone through like multiple phenomenal journeys. To me, it sounds like community has played a role in you being able to get past certain things. And I think that's what you're building right now with this podcast, obviously, right? It's one of the best ways to build community. One thing I wanted to ask you about is, there's another fear that you talked about on your show, at least your first episode, that's really interesting that most people wouldn't expect from a doctor, right? And the reason I'm bringing this up, because I suffer from this at times also, is most people don't expect their doctors, to have a fear of public speaking. Like, let's talk about that. And based on my understanding, you're actually going through that right now, right? Like this is really cool, right?
Yes, I am. I mean, every single time, even now, I can probably feel my pulse, and it's pretty rapid. And my palms are actually not
describe that feeling. Describe it. Right. What is that feeling right now? Tell us all about it.
So it's when I really feel like I'm talking to you all that are out there, and because I can visualize that, because I can feel like there are so many people listening, it does make me nervous. It does make my heart rate increase. It does not, thankfully, make my palms sweaty, which usually is what happens when I'm getting ready to give a speech or speak to in a public venue. But it's real. And I know that the fear of public speaking is something that is listed as a number one fear for the majority of people. This is not unique to me. But the flip side is, as a physician, as you said, Dr. Darko, we're expected to be the leaders. We're expected to be the ones that are articulate and who can convey the message in a proper fashion so that it can be reached by the masses. And that's essentially what public speaking is. And we practice it a lot. I mean, every single time we speak with a patient, letting them know the risk benefits of a procedure, talking to them about the outcomes, talking to them about their problem and how we're going to solve it. That's public speaking. But I still get nervous. I just don't know. I just do. And I feel like that fear, it drives me to want to be better at it. So it makes me want to be a better communicator with those that I'm caring for. It makes me want to be a better communicator with my colleagues. And this podcast is partially a selfish motive behind it, because I am hoping that we can be on this journey together and we can face our fears together. You're helping me face my fear of public speaking by allowing me to speak to you. And I really appreciate that. Mm-hmm. And, I hope that we all gain something from this. I hope that I'm hoping that I gain a lot from it, but I'm also hoping that this reciprocates and that you gain a lot from it as well, that you will feel like there's that one thing, that one challenge, that one fear that you've been putting aside and burying, and that you're going to make that rise to the top and you're going to make a decision to conquer it. Because we are all amazing people and we all have something absolutely unique to share, and we cannot let fear stomp that out. We cannot let fear steal our shine. And so we just have to do this. So I'm just super excited that you have joined me on this journey, and I am just excited to see how far we're going to go.
Me too. I love that. There you go. Like, you got me fired up. Wow. Spoken like someone who doesn't have a fear of public speaking, right?
Yeah,
I'm teasing. But you're doing a great job. You're doing an excellent job. I can't tell. But I think that this is going to help build your community, right? Because I think there are a lot of people who are listening to this show right now that are like, wow, like, she's an ER physician. She's from a different country, but like, I would hold her in such esteem. But wow, like, she suffers from public speaking just like, us also. And she's willing to put that out on Front Street and take us episode through episode through that issue. And, I think that's what's up. I think that's a great way to build this show. And like I said, I think this is amazing. So I think that this is a great way to start your second episode and finish your second episode. Why don't you go ahead and let people know exactly, once again, your call to action, and let's go ahead and end the show.
Thank you again, Dr. Darko, for being on the show. Really appreciate your time and sharing your expertise and grilling me. Oh my gosh, I was on the hot seat. But I am just so glad that you all were able to join us and listen. If you found something valuable from this podcast, please go ahead and share the podcast. Make a review, and you can do so on all of those platforms like Stitcher and Apple Podcasts, as well as Google Podcasts. And the only way that our show is going to be able to reach more and more people is if you review it and you share it. So I really appreciate you, and I hope that you will definitely come back and listen again. And in the meantime, my wish for you is that you will be strong, be brave, and unleash your greatness.